So this is where stage 5 of Erikson's theory comes in, the identity versus role confusion. So according to Erikson, the major question that youth in the teenage years will be facing is, who am I, right? And so the major events related are social relationships. Identity involves the experiences, relationships, beliefs, values, and memories that make up a person's sense of self. This helps create a continuous self-image that remains fairly constant even as new aspects are developed or strengthened over time. So identity provides the following: self-sameness. So you're the same across all boards, right? In every interaction, more or less, you are the same person. You don't feel like you need to be a chameleon. You don't feel like you need to shift, right? You feel like you can just be your authentic self for the most part, right? We all know that in professional settings, things might need to change, but for the most part, you are who you are across all boards. Uniqueness as well, a frame to differentiate between yourself and between other people, right? Knowing that you are just you, and there is not another person like you anywhere else to exist. And the last one is psychosocial development. So that's physical and mental well-being for adolescents. So during this stage, the conflict that is entered is personal identity, right? Like we said, successfully completing this leads to a strong sense of self. So when we talk about role confusion, what we mean is that kids who are not allowed to explore and test out different identities might be left with, like I said, role confusion. So this can be like being unsure of where you fit in and where you belong, drifting from one relationship or friend group or job to another, and then feeling disappointed about your place or confused about your place in life. So some of the things that change are identity, right? Like I said, they're trying to figure out who they are, the things they like, trying on different clothes, music, art, friend groups, family, friends, and media and culture are some of the things that might influence that. Right? So we all maybe we've all heard the it's not a phase, mom situation, but it is a phase, and that's okay. They're trying to put on different hats, figure out where they fit, right? The next one is independence will change. They'll probably want to be more independent around adolescence. They want to be a little bit more in charge of how they'll get around and where they're able to go, how they'll spend their time and who they're with and what they spend their money on if they have an allowance or they have like a little babysitting job or something. As your child becomes more independent, it probably means some changes in your family routine might happen because they want that independence, right? The next thing is responsibility. So your child might be looking to take on more responsibility at home or at school. So this could include things like making dinner either for themselves or for the family at least once a week, or even being on the school's like student council. So for example, where I work at the Kenneth Young Center, we have 2 youth advisory councils, one at Elk Grove High School and one serving District 211, which is like in the Schaumburg area. We have those 2 things that give students a chance for leadership. So maybe if your student is looking for that sense of responsibility, joining a student council or joining a youth advisory council would be a good option for them, right? The next thing is experiences, new experiences. They're more than likely trying to look for that outlet. And a lot of times this is where risky experiences come in, right? This is where substance use comes in. This is where them learning more about sex and all those types of things comes in, which is why it's important that having that open line of communication and explaining to them, okay, does this align with what you see for yourself? Does this align with your goal? We can encourage healthy risk, things like trying new foods, things like trying new places to hang out that are safe, right? Instead of going to the mall all the time, maybe we go skating one night, doing things that are new experiences, going on roller coasters, right? Going to Six Flags, doing things that are fun and age appropriate, and encouraging them to do those new things will also eliminate or prevent some of that risk of them doing things that they more than likely will be getting them into a little bit of trouble. Another thing that will change is values. So this is the time where your child will start to develop a stronger sense of values and morals, and they might be questioning things more. So your words and actions will help shape your child's sense of morality, of what's right and what's wrong. The next thing is influences. So friends and peers are probably going to start influencing your child a lot more, especially about their behavior, their appearance, their interests, and then their sense of self and self-esteem. So you still have a huge influence on long-term things like career choices, values, and morals. But this is a time where their influences, like for example, what they want to wear, will probably be influenced by the people they're around most often, which are their peers. So this could be a good time to have that conversation about, okay, let me help you figure out what you really like and not the things that you are being peer pressured into liking, right? Having those open conversations about those types of things. The next one is sexual identity. So your child might start to have romantic feelings or romantic relationships and go out on dates. They're super excited to hold hands with Johnny down the street for like 3 whole seconds, right? They're so excited at this time. But this doesn't always mean that they're super intimate relationships, but they might just be trying to figure it out. So for some people, this might happen later on in life, but this is an important time to be having those conversations about how do you feel, and having those moments where they can open up, and showing that they can trust you and all of those types of things. The next and last thing on this slide is media will be a huge influence, right? We live in a super digital age. We all know that the kids have TikTok and they have Snapchat and they have whatever else they use, right? So this might influence how your child communicates with friends and learns about the world and also how they feel about themselves. So there are also many risks as well as benefits to that ability to be on media all the time. So talking to your child is the best way to protect them, and making sure that you talk to them about internet safety and making sure that you have those conversations. And if you don't know, there are definitely people within your community who can connect you to the resources so that you know what are the laws, what are the things that might be suspicious, right? So we can talk about those types of things. Some of the emotional changes. All right, so this is where like typical teen angst comes in. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, which is happening during the teen years. So, right, we all know moods and feelings, those things are changing, right? Your child might show strong feelings and intense emotions, and their mood might seem unpredictable. These ups and downs happen because your child's brain is still learning how to control and express emotions in an adult way, right? If you think that sometimes it's hard for you to manage your emotions, just think of how somebody who's the front part of their brain, the part that helps you make decisions, is not all the way developed, right? They're learning. They're still learning. So having that patience to understand that there will be a fluctuation in their mood. If you think it's annoying that their mood is changing, right? Imagine how they feel. The next thing is sensitivity to others. So as your child gets older, they'll get better at understanding people's emotions. But right now, it's kind of easy to misread facial expressions, body language, and misinterpret those things. So they might need some help working that out or having that conversation if they do misunderstand, and understanding that intent isn't always impact, right? So if they get upset about something that you say, and they think, and you think that, oh, you didn't mean it that way, oh, that was not my intention, just know that your intent does not always match your impact. And that's a time to have a conversation about, okay, here's how we misunderstood. What can we do to make it okay? What can we do to remedy that? The next one is that they are self-conscious at age, right? So teenage self-esteem often affects how teenagers think about how they look. They might feel self-conscious about their physical appearance, and they also might compare their bodies to those of their friends or their peers or the people they say on social media. So this is why, and we'll talk about this a little later, it is super important to not attribute their physical features to their self-worth. It's important that we don't even talk about it. We talk about what has merit outside of how they physically look, because they're already super aware of it. They're already self-conscious about it. They already know that they don't look like their friend, or that they do look like their friend, or whatever the case might be, right? So having that conversation about things outside of their physical body that makes them good and that makes them awesome. And the last one is decision making. So your child might go through a stage where they seem to act without thinking, right? That impulse control. Your decision making skills are still developing at this age, and they're still learning that their actions have consequences, right? So having those conversations and helping them bridge that gap between the things that they do and the things that the way that they feel, right? All those types of things. Changes in relationships, right? Like I said, their friends are becoming more important at this age. And so they might want to spend more time with their friends and less time with the family. The next thing is that they might be having more arguments with their parent or guardian, right? And that's because they're seeking that independence. They're starting to think more abstractly. They're starting to question viewpoints. They're not necessarily questioning you, but they are questioning, why do you think that way? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for the world, right? On the top of this, they might be upset. They might upset people without meaning to, right? Because they don't always understand the consequences of their actions, right? And then this is where utilizing good conflict management will come in to a benefit for both you and your student. And the last one, right, goes hand in hand, is that they'll start seeing things a little bit differently than you. And that's fine, right? As long as you've been instilling those morals, those things that you think are concrete to their development, right? These are times where they might be changing some of the things that they believe about you. And it's okay, like, right? I'm sure that many of us have friends that we love unconditionally that have different opinions than we do, or that have different interests or different likes than we do. And it's totally okay. We still need to be giving that unconditional love to our students, regardless if they, can sometimes be difficult. So some of the consequences of having a lack of identity, we're talking about emotional challenges for teens. So some of the consequences of having a lack of identity are difficulties with commitment, right? They might bounce around from friend group to friend group. They might bounce around from activity to activity. And when they're older, relationship to relationship, or job to job. They might have a weak sense of self, lack of confidence, and then worse mental health and well-being, right? So it's important to note that at this age, there's increased risk of poor mental health, as well as increased risk for substance misuse or substance use. So the average onset of many mental health disorders is around 14 and a half. So this might be because of a stronger emotional response in adolescence, or motivations or difficulty balancing emotions and behaviors, but also generally, this is when the onset of mental health issues start to happen. And this is not to say that this is something as a parent that you should be ashamed of. I know that my parents did the best they could. They were awesome parents. They're lovely human beings. But the onset of some of my mental health issues started around age 13, right? And now as a 24-year-old, that has nothing to do with my parents anymore, right? That has nothing to do with them. But all I know is that they supported me and they helped me get to a place where I felt like I was okay. So if you feel like your student is struggling with things more than just normal teen angst, it's important for you to talk to your school's resources. There are plenty of them, as well as maybe a general practitioner, or you can always reach out to the Kenneth Young Center and we can connect you with any local resources.